and a deal that involved the Clippers acquiring Rajon Rondo from the Atlanta Hawks for Lou Williams and 2 second-round picks. Now, LA gets a floor general while Atlanta gets more scoring depth. And Jay Will, the professor, what do you see Rondo providing the Clips on their quest to the franchise's first ever championship?
You see, MT, this team is now getting El Capitan. They're getting a leader. They're getting somebody who is willing to draw a line in the sand and say, hey, you get over here, you do what I need you to do. Kawhi Leonard is not that guy. Paul George is a scorer, but he's different than Rajon Rondo. Now, exclude this year. I'm not talking about this year. I'm talking about playoff Rondo, okay? Got to average 6.6 assists per game. 6.6 assists per game. I said it. I still butchered it. Here we go. On the screen coming up. Once again, look how he comes off the screen here. As he comes off the screen, look at the read he makes. Simple reads. What are you doing here? He's going to attack this gap. As he attacks this gap here, look how the defense all rotates over. Defense is coming over. Here we go. Defenders coming over. Coming over. He's seeing everything, right? Rondo, always seeing the floor. This is what you love about him. Just scouring. As he's coming, he's seeing here. What are you doing? What are you doing, Jokic? He sees over here in the corner. He also sees behind him that Danny Green can slide into this gap, making the simple plays as he draws the defense, seeing the court, boom, kick out pass, bald eagle there, ready to knock it down, knocks down the shot, okay? Little simple plays like that are what makes him special. Basketball IQ. Once again, as he comes off this high pick and roll, spacing, timing is everything. AD sets a screen. All right, as he sets a screen, the person to pay attention to here is Paul Millsap. Watch how Paul Millsap here just keeps going back, keeps going back, keeps going back. You know why? Because when he comes off this screen, he's pushing him. He's pushing him. Watch how he creates space. Keeps going at him, keeps going at him, keeps going at him. Now as he goes at him, I missed it, darn it, you'll see it. As he goes at him, he gets into the gap here. Look at all the defenders he draws. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? Look at some of the gaps these guys have. You have Dwight Howard can slip behind the defense. Danny Green can slip up here. You have a little kick to the corner. Look at the vision here. He's reading everybody. What are you doing, Jamal Murray? Have a kick out here to KCP. Can I see here to Dwight Howard slipping behind Jokic, who's not paying attention? Michael Porter Jr., he's not paying attention to his man. Can Danny Green slip up here for a 3? Or have a simple gap pass right here to AD. Now, come on. Get out there, Paul Millsap. Get out. Those are the simple plays, though. That basketball IQ, making the game easier for everybody. That's what the Clippers were missing. How about Kawhi Leonard and Paul George lead this team in assists? Nobody else on the team is averaging 3 assists or more.
All right, you're in your playing shape, you're in your touchscreen shape, but you are not a Rondo expert. The person that is on this show so happens to be Paul Pierce. You played with him. You understand his leadership style. How do you think he'll fit in with the Clippers?
Well, I like what Jay Will said about drawing a line in the sand. And the things we questioned about the Clippers last year is they lack leadership. That's something that Rondo is going to be able to bring to the team because, of course, he did graduate from the Pearson Garnett Leadership Academy. And now I think this is the one thing that the Clippers were missing. And one can argue that he was the 3rd most important player on the Lakers championship run last year. I didn't say best, but most important player. And I think he can provide that for the Clippers because now they have a leader, they have a champion, and a guy, he raises their IQ, and a guy who knows what it takes when it gets there to get in guys' face when they're down or when they're up 15 points to close out a team, when they're up 3-1 to close out a team. That's what he's going to provide, and that's what I thought the Clippers were missing last year.
Rondo, terrific basketball IQ, great in pick and roll. But the one thing you and Jay didn't mention that the Clippers are going to actually need from the point guard spot is scoring. They're last in the league as it relates to their point guard starting and scoring points. So what does that mean? They're in the West. You got Book and CP. You got Donovan Mitchell. You got Dame Dollar. You got guys that's going to get you buckets, Spider Mitchell. And so it's going to be interesting to see if the last couple of minutes, Kawhi loves to operate mid-range in the 3-point stance. I don't know if Rondo's going to be able to have him cutting and moving and stuff like that in their first year. So I'm excited that he gets a chance to run with them, but he's definitely going to need to score some points and hit some open shots.
I think what you prove with your touchscreen, though, is that, playoff Rondo situation, is that he's the floor general they need. Do you believe he can bring the scoring that Jay Rose is mentioning, a load that he really didn't have to carry as much with the Lakers?
I mean, he started to make shots for the Lakers off kickoffs and things of that sort. I think he has to be serviceable. But when I watch them play, nobody makes the game easy. Right? Like Paul George and Kawhi are getting points out of their system or when they're isolated. It's not like somebody's just in transition, a hockey assist. Those little pass the ball ahead, make the simple play. I think that's an additive dimension to their team. I don't know if he's enough to get them over the hump, though.
Okay.
That's another question.
Yeah, that's another question, especially if you got LeBron coming back.
They are moving on to the buyout market. Who is the biggest name?
It's Andre Drummond. I look at Drummond, and there are 6 teams to consider with him, and I think the wild card of this group is going to be the New York Knicks. I think if you are New York and if you're Andre Drummond, you're looking at a marriage here that could be long-term. Anywhere else he goes is going to be a rental based on the team's cap situation with the Lakers or maybe even Brooklyn. With Drummond to New York, it's an audition for a team that's got $50 million in cap space this summer, an opportunity to play. And if he goes to a team like Brooklyn or even the Lakers, there's no guarantee that he's going to play 25 to 30 minutes. So he's the number one guy for me from the buyout standpoint.
Perk, what would be more important to you if you were a guy like Drummond? Would you want to go to a team like the Nets or the Lakers where you feel like you could win a ring this year? Or would you want to go to a place like, say, the Knicks, where you could have maybe a longer-term stay there and possibly line yourself up for more money?
Well, it all depends on who you are, Rachel. I mean, some guys want to win and some guys want to get all the letters that they possibly can, and you can't knock them from that. And I think it's going to come down ultimately to what Andre Drummond want to do. If he want to go to New York and audition and get more money, or he want to go win a ring. I mean, he done already made $100+ million in this league. I'm not counting his pockets. He's not getting younger. He should be wanting to go win a championship. And I do think if he goes to the Los Angeles Lakers, there are some minutes there for him. And I think he could get about 25 to 26 minutes a night because they are missing that lob threat at the basket. They're missing those 2 guys like Dwight Howard and JaVale McGee. Marc Gasol, I love him, hell of a career, former Defensive Player of the Year, but he's not what the Lakers need. So if I'm Andre Drummond, you got to choose between the two. Whether I want to go for me a ring and put it and try to win me a championship to have in my trophy case, or do I want to go audition and keep filling up my bank account? It's on you either way.
All right, Bobby, so that's a little bit about Andre Drummond. Who's your next name on the list all these teams are going to be competing over?
Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge in San Antonio. And, you know, when the Aldridge rumors came out, I guess a couple weeks ago, the number was just so high, Rachel, for a trade to happen. And San Antonio has been known to do buyouts. I think we're going to see one come down the road here. They did one with Pau Gasol and DeMar Carroll. Aldridge in Miami is certainly a match to keep an eye on. The Heat now have these roster spots based on this Oladipo trade that they can go out and sign Aldridge and, you know, have him maybe back up behind Bam Adebayo or maybe experiment and play with Adebayo there. But Aldridge to the Heat is probably the name and team to certainly to watch over the next couple days.
And it's interesting because LaMarcus Aldridge has not, let's just face it, he has not been playing well for the Spurs lately. But I want to turn to you guys. You are both former Spurs sitting here in the studio with me. And you said during the break to me, you said San Antonio is a place that if you're not happy, it's hard to play well. So if that's part of the issue that's been going on with the Spurs, do you think if he moves to another team, if he moves to, say, Miami, like Bobby's talking about, his level of play will go up?
Well, let's just look at 2 veterans just this season. Blake Griffin ain't dunked in 2 years. He plays for 6 minutes with the Nets. He gets a dunk. James Harden looked like he was, you know, at Big Mama's house with a fat suit. All of a sudden, he's an MVP candidate for the Brooklyn Nets. Yeah. If LaMarcus Aldridge ain't happy, I'm going to personally believe that there's a lot more in the take than what he's presenting right now. That doesn't mean you want to trade for him. Doesn't mean you want to do anything.
Pay the huge salary, but if he's getting bought out.
But if he's getting bought out and he can show up on your roster, my belief is that he has a lot more ability.
You all think about this. This is one of the guys that scored 50 points in a game without shooting a 3. So you know the guy can score. If you put him on a team like the Miami Heat with that staff around him, he can score in the paint all day. We know Pat Riley and that crew is a grinded, gritty type of team. And look, even though people don't look at LaMarcus Aldridge in that type of form, but he is that type of guy in the post, doing work in the post, getting buckets like that. So if he goes to the Heat, it'll be great for them.
The one thing I will say is that if he was not happy in San Antonio, I'm very curious to see how the structure and the intensity of Miami. Because without a doubt, the two places that are the most structured and consistent are Miami
But here's
and San
the thing
Antonio.
is, I was miserable in Phoenix because we weren't winning.
Okay.
And when you're not winning and you're used to winning, it plays on you mentally. So when he's going to the Heat, who just came out the finals, he's going to be energized, he's going to be excited, he's going to be ready to play.
He was miserable way before that.
That's what happens when you go for the money. That's what happens when you go for the money.
You've got a microphone on.
Oh, okay. Well, don't tell anybody. LaMarcus has been miserable for a while.
Bobby, thank you so much for being
I love you,
with
Richard.
us.
I love you, man. I feel like I'm back in New Jersey hearing that. They're hearing you. I feel like I'm back in that Nets locker room.
It's good to see you, Bobby. Can't wait to see you.
We haven't even set this up yet, but I'm going to promo it anyway.
Bobby drafted me.
At some point, we're going to do just a whole either segment or, frankly, it could be a whole show, Bobby, with you telling stories on Richard Jefferson, on Vince Carter.
Well, I got some Bobby Mark stories. Can I tell some
Bobby Mark? The deadline has passed. Woj, is your phone on fire? The man who all day, every 3 minutes, has been updating us with news after news after news, our senior insider, Adrian Wojnarowski. And Woj, the biggest story today is Toronto deciding in the end to keep Kyle Lowry. Can you pull the curtain back on that decision for us?
Yeah, you saw a buildup of deals with Toronto, trading Terrence Davis to Sacramento and Matt Thomas to Utah, and obviously the Norman Powell deal to Portland, which I thought was one of the best of the day. And it felt like a buildup to a Kyle Lowry trade. And I know Masai Ujiri was talking with teams right up until that 3 o'clock Eastern deadline, and the Lakers, Philadelphia, Miami, obviously, and Miami pivoted. They did the Victor Oladipo deal, and I think part of it too, in talking to people around Masai Ujiri and the Raptors and Kyle Lowry, he was always fine with finishing the season with the Raptors, and I think ultimately Ujiri didn't find a deal that was compelling enough to make the trade. And listen, he'll finish the year with the Raptors. He'll become a free agent. When you look at the direction of the franchise, it seems unlikely that he would be part of their long-term plans. And obviously Lowry at this point in his career could certainly go somewhere else and maybe be in position to win a title. But there's no question Kyle Lowry staying in Toronto was a surprise, and they went down to the wire before deciding that they weren't going to take any of the deals on the table, and he was going to stay in Toronto or stay in Tampa, which is where he'll finish the season. I was going to say,
where he will be able to play more golf for the rest of the season. This day, it never disappoints. There's always the not action is action. You mentioned the Norm Powell deal to Portland. What do you think that does for them in the West?
It gives them, it really gives them another impact perimeter shooter. Powell's had his best season in the NBA, averaging almost 20 points a game with the Raptors this year. I think 43% on three-pointers. And, he'll be a free agent this summer. He'll be able to decline. He'll decline certainly his team option. And, he can certainly be a part now of that, Blazers core. And this is a team that's getting its players back healthy. Obviously, C.J. McCollum came back recently. Yusuf Nurkic will be back soon. And all of a sudden now you've got a Portland team that really held the fort down when they lost, so many of their key players throughout the season. Damian Lillard had carried that team, and now everybody's back, and they get a great boost from Norm Powell, who comes back to the West Coast. He was obviously a man who played his college ball at UCLA.
Real quick before we let you go, Woj, the LaMarcus Aldridge domino, the Andre Drummond domino, the players be expected to get bought out and go to contenders. When do we think those dominoes will fall?
Well, both LaMarcus Aldridge and Andre Drummond are going to get buyouts with their teams, the Spurs, the Cavs. I'm told that the Miami Heat are going to be a front runner for LaMarcus Aldridge. He plans to talk to several teams, and same with Drummond. I think there are a number of teams who'd love to have him. Both LA teams, the Nets, the Knicks are certainly a team with some cap space moving forward that could be intriguing, and Drummond will certainly have his choice of where he wants to play.
All right, so everyone out there, if your team did not make the move you wanted or expected today, it is possible that move could still be coming. Woj, thank you so much. Again, the phone.
Thank you, Rachel.
Make sure it does not explode before the end of the day. We are almost out of time here on the Jumps trade deadline special, but I want to get back to, what it is like to be a player on a day like today. Perk, I know you got a story. Why don't you go first?
Well, Rachel, fortunately, I was only traded twice in my 14-year career. But in Oklahoma City, I knew I was about to get traded like weeks in advance. I was told that by the front office. But in Boston, I had no idea. I actually found out the morning I woke up in my hotel room in Denver, and it was on SportsCenter. And the next thing I know, blockbuster trade. Kendrick Perkins has been traded to Oklahoma City, and I'm like, what? What's going on? And I did not know. I literally had to find out through SportsCenter, and then all of a sudden I looked at my phone and I had like 10 missed calls. So that's how I found out that I got traded. That's the weirdest trade story for us with me.
This is why Perk said earlier on this show, Duncan Robinson, don't sleep, because you never know what could happen. Robert, what about you? What's your spiciest trade story?
Well, I've been traded 2.5 times, so half is important. The Sean Elliott trade that fell through came back. But I think for me, on the other end, I think when you lose a good friend, I remember driving to the stadium, and all of a sudden I see Otis Thorpe leaving. I'm like, Otis, where you going? And he's like, just leaving. And he didn't even know he got traded because this was before cell phones. This was before all these things you could know. So he had got to the stadium, and we had made a big trade for Clyde Drexler. And I'm like, Otis, where you going? You my boy. So that's the only trade story I had around trade and deadline, because I got traded in the summer one time, and I got traded when I threw the towel in Danny Ainge's face. That was executive.
You threw a towel at Danny Ainge's face?
Yeah, that was an executive move, man. I had to do that to get up out of Phoenix, man. I just told you earlier that I hated losing, and we were losing in Phoenix. I had to get to the Lakers.
You threw a towel at the coach's face?
You got to do.
I'm just playing. I'm messing with you. I grew up in Phoenix. I was watching the exact same thing. It was
Producer
hilarious.
Danny says Google it. Again, don't Google Evan Fournier's last name.
Google
If you
Fournier.
learn
You're welcome.
Anything from our show today, never Google. Richard, what's your best trade story?
Well, my best trade story is not a deadline, but I did have a kid. With cell phones, a kid told me that I got traded at my.
So, break. Go ahead, Director Kathy. Make it happen. This is where I miss the crank, because you guys would both be just like covered in smoke
I like
right
the
now.
smoke because it actually frames me very well, right? It like smokes you, and it's just me doing this.
Let's talk about the news. Houston trading Victor Oladipo to Miami, a source telling ESPN.
Hear that, Perk?
Also, Kyle Lowry, Woj tweeting, is staying
That's mind blowing.
with Toronto, which Richard said 10 minutes ago would not happen, so he might be in a penalty box for
I
the
was
rest
quoting
of the show.
Ramona. I'm kidding, Ramona. I'm
Do
kidding.
not
I'm
throw
kidding.
our
I'm
friends
kidding.
under the bus, please.
I said I was kidding before I finished the sentence.
All right, Zach, what do you think of those two moves?
I'm very surprised by the Lowry one, given all the moving parts in Toronto jettisoning some guys to open up roster spots. But look, they didn't have to trade them. They're still a decent team. They're still set to be a decent team next year. They can sign and trade them this summer. Oladipo to Miami has been rumored forever. My guess here, until we get the terms from Woj, is that the price was just lower than it would have been for Kyle Lowry, that Toronto held the line at a place where Miami was uncomfortable. And they said, okay, you know what? We'll take this guy. We'll get his bird rights. He helps us this season. We get to look at him, see if he looks healthier, see if he looks a little more productive for us, and we'll see what happens in the summer.
And the deal with Lowry now, obviously staying in Toronto. Look, of course, they can re-sign him, considering that they did have offers from around the league. And as we've talked about a lot, Zach, it's a little bit of a lost season for them at this point. Sure, they could get there. They're in 11th now. They could get into a play-in. They could win their play-in. They could get a first-round playoff matchup. But if you're a team that just won the title a couple of years ago, everyone would understand if they had completed this fire sale. Why do you think, even if the offers weren't quite what they wanted, they decided to hold firm here? Do you really think they're going to sign and trade him, or just sign and keep him?
I think they could, yeah. I mean, why not sign and trade him? They could this summer. There will be a market for him this summer. He's still a very good player. And as far as why they keep him, look, he has tremendous institutional value to their team. He's the greatest player in franchise history. If the offers were middling, if the offers weren't up to what they thought they should be, fine. I mean, this is a team that, if you just give them a bad first-round pick, they don't really care. They think we have a history of getting guys that aren't even drafted and turning them into players that are better than first-round picks. So you got to give them something that matters to give up a player like Kyle Lowry. I'm not totally shocked. I am surprised given all the machinations that were going on today. It is definitely a plot twist I didn't expect, but we'll see what happens.
Plot twist. Plot twist. I love trade deadline day. All right, so Kyle Lowry staying with the Raptors means that the teams that were bidding for him aren't getting him. So we just talked about Miami. Victor Oladipo is going to fill that need there. Robert, you're with the Lakers so much as one of their studio analysts. What do you think about the fact that they are not getting Kyle Lowry, will now move on to the buyout market? What do you think the impact is? Because clearly they just weren't willing to give up what Toronto wanted.
I think in that trade, they wanted THT, and we've seen what THT can do. He
sit up here, and the Lakers, and now you want to sit up here and praise how PG and everybody else are changing the game. I mean, you can't straddle the fence.
Yes,
Either
you can.
feel this way or you feel that way. I mean, that's what it is.
Have you not been paying attention, Perk, to RJ's entire broadcast career so far? Absolutely, he can straddle the fence.
I mean,
the man is a specialist.
No, see, this Perk is calling me out on something that is not accurate and not real. What I was saying is that when you look at Schroeder is very, very good. Do you want to give him up for a rental? Do you want to give up Tyler Hero, who's 21 years old, and if it doesn't work, Kyle Lowry can go sign with somebody else and you lost Tyler Hero? That's what I was saying. It's not that the veteran leadership isn't valued or that he's not great. I just don't, you got to be careful what you give up for him.
But RJ, that's not a valid point because Schroeder's in the last year of his deal, so he's also a rental right now.
27 years old.
He is also a rental right now. It's not a guarantee that if the Lakers keep him, he's going to sign back.
That's fair.
They've been back and forth trying to get a contract extension and haven't agreed on it. So he's a rental as well, right?
Yeah, correct.
Okay, cool.
Okay, cool. Don't sass me.
I don't get sassy.
Sass me. Sass me.
Talk about.
Can you tell that these guys were former teammates? Because I can, for sure. And by the way, Perk, excellent salary cap knowledge. Just going to tip the cap there as well. All right, let's talk a little Victor Oladipo, friends, because he also is a rental. He's in the final year of his contract with the Rockets. There is a lot of interest in him around the league. Steven Silas said that Oladipo was at practice with the team today. Not that surprising. It's not like a guy's going to get...
He showed up for work.
Right.
Yes. Congratulations.
But, relevant that he's not already on a plane to somewhere else. And by the way, showing up for work is an accomplishment in today's professional
Yes, it is.
sports. So there you go.
Perk's here.
Robert, how much value do you think the Rockets can wring out of Victor Oladipo? Because, look, he's had the injury history. He's never quite gotten going this year, either with the Pacers or with Houston. But he is a trade chip for them.
He has a lot of talent and he has a lot of potential, but he's potentially can get hurt also. And that's the thing that a lot of guys are scary of. And the Rockets right now are pretty much stuck with him in my mind because if there was going to be an offer for Oladipo, it'd have been out there by now. He'd have been moved a long time ago when you was getting rid of all these other guys. But Oladipo can do some damage on a championship team. Like I would love to see him with someone like the Lakers because they, if you want to trade, and I love KCP, but this guy is a guy who can score more consistently than KCP in a situation like that. But the injury bug is just a scary thing because that wasn't just a minor injury. That was a devastating injury.
Yeah, and it's the value. It's like Bradley Beal and like Victor Oladipo. These are young players that are in the quote unquote prime of their career. So your value that you might want in return from them might be too much because Victor Oladipo could help a ton of pond. But we got a Woj bomb.
I was going to say, I need the Craig, Kathy. I need the Craig.
What do we got?
The problem is I have no issue interrupting you.
I have no problem.
The control room is nicer. It is official now, according to Adrian Wojnarowski. In fact, Rajon Rondo going to the Clippers. The whole panel, of course, was just talking about why they think this is good for the Clippers. But let's take that conversation to the next level. Robert, how much do you think this moves them up in terms of actual title contenders in the West?
They're probably number one right now because I'm saying that only because LeBron is hurt. We don't know how bad LeBron is hurt. AD, we don't know what's going to happen with him. So right now, with this point guard, with Rondo coming there, they just got a lot of leadership on that court because I would love to be a fly on the wall and put him in that locker room because there's a lot of things that go on in the locker room that we hear about, but I know Rondo is going to take control and say, hey, the most important thing right now is to try to win a championship. We have the talent. We have the coaching staff. All we got to do is go out and put it and apply it on the court. Now we have the pieces to do that with Rondo, who's going to bring them together. He's that glue that they needed.
Well, and I look at the Denver Nuggets and say that you needed to make a move because if you tried to show up and again going against that Denver Nugget team that just got better, if you're trying to show up with the same similar team, probably less talented in my opinion than last year because Lou Williams hasn't been playing as great. Yeah. I like Serge and I like the way Serge is playing, but I feel like there's a difference between him and Montrez. So I just think that right now the Clippers are in that position, if you want to say that, because you don't know about the health of the two Lakers stars. I think the Clippers and the Denver Nuggets, in my opinion, are the two teams that I would really look at to make those types of runs if it's not the Lakers.
All right, well, here is the deal officially. Lou Williams is involved. He is on his way to Atlanta. You guys didn't mention the Jazz or the Suns in that conversation.
The Jazz and the Suns, there's still a lot more to prove. And I know the Jazz, even Rudy Gobert said it himself. We act like we have to go and do something in order for people to believe in us. So I'm just, I'm echoing that. I believe that they have all the talent. They are one of the best teams and they have been all year, but they have to go and do it in order to make believers.
Yeah, they have talent, but the other teams just have more talent.
Perk, what about you? Where do you think this move puts the Clippers with Rajon Rondo coming in and Lou Will coming out?
Well, first of all, shout out to Lou Will. He gets to eat all the
lemon pepper chicken he wants.
Hey, do you, Lou? But listen, with Rajon Rondo coming in, now you have that voice in the locker room where Ty Lue don't have to be the voice and the leader all the time. And we all know, all three of us on here that are champions know how critical it is for guys to be on here and have a guy or guys in the locker room to police ourselves. And that's what Rondo is going to do. He's going to hold everyone accountable, including himself. That's what type of leader you need, and you can't argue with him. You know why? Because he's a two-time NBA champion. The only other person on that team that can say something is Kawhi Leonard. Everybody else really has to fall in line.
Yeah, and look, Serge Ibaka, obviously also a champion. So
Serge. My apologies, Serge. My bad. He's been modeling so much, I forgot all about it.
He's very fancy. Things are happening here. Just 25 minutes to go until the deadline. Kyle Lowry still on the board. Victor Oladipo still on the board. Josh Hart from the Pelicans tweeting, refreshing my feed every 5 seconds. Josh, you know what you got to do. Just watch the jump.
Well,
keep you up to date.
It doesn't work like that, Josh. Like if you just keep going, it doesn't work that way.
We'll have so much more coming up in the show, Brian.
Front office.
You look like you're raging, Brian.
Thank you. That's how I roll. The Miami Heat front office is very much inside, though. We got a game of chicken right now being played with the Toronto Raptors. The Miami Heat have made their offer. The Philadelphia 76ers have made their offer for Kyle Lowry, and the LA Lakers have made their offer. And the Raptors are sitting there deciding. From what I have been told, my latest information is that the Heat have not been willing to put Tyler Hero into that trade package. Now, they made another trade earlier today, picking up Nemanja Bjelica, which adds a power forward to them, which indicates that they may be willing to move Kelly Olynyk back to his native Canada, although he won't go there, he'll go to Toronto, in this type of trade. Duncan Robinson is the young player who has been willing, the Heat have been willing to put into the package so far. That has not satisfied the Raptors. There's been some discussion, I've been told, about rookie Precious Achiuwa, their young big man, also possibly being included. But Tyler Hero is the guy that the Raptors want to execute this deal. And in Miami, or in Los Angeles, they want Talen Horton-Tucker. And if they don't get either of them, maybe they'll do Philly's deal, which I think may have Tyrese Maxey and potentially another first-round pick in it. But I don't think they like their choices, and they could just keep him. And so that's what the Raptors are pacing back and forth on, and the Heat here in Miami are thinking about whether to increase their offer. But I would say at this point, Tyler Hero's not getting put in.
And RJ, why you keep making that face at me like?
Because I keep showing you that they don't want to give up Tyler Hero. If a team wants
but it just also shows you how valuable Kyle Lowry is, right? That they're not just about to give him up for nothing, and that they want back a great package in return. That shows you how much they value him as well, because they could just grant him his wish and send him along. They have the Raptors have nice young talent already in place right there, where they don't have to be acquiring more. That shows you the value of Kyle Lowry also. Don't be giving me that sassiness or what you just told me I was doing.
This shows the value of Tyler Hero, not Kyle Lowry. If Tyler Hero was in the deal would be done. So it's not showing the value of Kyle, it's showing the value of Tyler Hero. That's the part that you're missing. I understand what you're saying.
What you mean? How, Richard? If Toronto
because one team wants him, one team doesn't want to get rid of him.
If Toronto is asking for Tyler Hero, how does that not show the value of Kyle Lowry? That means I want him back in return to give up Kyle Lowry, right? It's the same thing, right?
If you want somebody and someone doesn't want to give you up, they're going to trade Kyle Lowry. They're going to trade him.
Yeah, but just not to Miami.
Yeah, that's fine. Because
okay,
Tyler,
cool.
whatever.
That's my point.
I love how Brian set this whole discussion up, by the way, saying it was a game of chicken between Pat Riley and Masai Ujiri. That is quite a game of chicken in terms of high-level NBA general managers. But let's move on, Brian, because where are you now, friend?
I have moved up the Atlantic coast to Boston, where I would always like to spend spring break. Not everybody would, but I like clam chowder. What can I say? So the Celtics made their significant move today, trading for Evan Fournier. A pretty good value trade. The Magic trading, giving Evan Fournier to the Celtics for just 2 second-round picks. That's pretty good. Now, they had some discussions about Aaron Gordon, and that would have been a difficult trade to execute because adding that much salary would have really pushed deep into the luxury tax. As it is, the Celtics moved into the luxury tax with this trade, with this Evan Fournier trade. It wouldn't surprise me if the Celtics come up with another deal here before the deadline to alleviate some of that salary tax situation.
17 minutes.
Well, I mean, there's the phone still works. So I know that Aaron Gordon ended up going to Denver for a package around young players. Certainly, Boston was interested in acquiring a forward, and they investigated them. They investigated John Collins. They investigated, Aaron Gordon. But ultimately, they do get a wing player who can score in Evan Fournier, and they are definitely in bad need of wing players. So the Celtics got better today. Whether they hit the required home run to take them out of 500-ville, that's yet to be seen.
Right. Hey, look, the Celtics needed anything, right? They had a coming to Jesus meeting last week. It didn't work. We're watching them playing. They're playing horrible basketball, watching the game last night. And I'm not blaming Marcus Smart for losing the game because I know it's more to that. But Marcus Smart has been wide open a lot and late in the fourth quarter for those driving kick three-point shots. And he haven't been able to knock them down. But getting a guy like Evan Fournier opens up the lane for Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Kemba Walker to go to work. And then, hey, he's a guy that's capable of having a big night, and he adds that extra firepower to the bench. The Celtics needed whatever in this before the trade deadline. They needed to add something because they have not lived up to expectations.
Yeah, the Celtics added that dead-eye shooter from three because Fournier can knock it down from 3-point. Well, what I like best about this deal, even though I don't want to give any type of credit to Danny Ainge, is he didn't give up anything but some second-round picks. So that is awesome. So now you have Fournier, and we see Smart sometimes can be suspect, but you do have Smart who can play defense. It's like one of those things. Do you want defense this game, or do you want offense with Fournier? So that's the best part about Fournier. He can come in, knock down that three, be solid, and he also, one of the things I love to say about him, he makes the people around him better. So like you said, Perk, he's going to open up the lanes for a lot of people.
Brian, producer Danny says you've got an update. Can we do the smoke machine? What do you got?
No, not yet. But
thank you, Kathy. Thank you. Kathy understands me.
No trade yet. I have been told that within the last few minutes, the Raptors. I have been told within the last few minutes, the Raptors have reached out to the teams and asked them for their last final offer. Basically, in other words, we're about to make our decision. If you want to increase your offer, do it now. Whether or not any of those teams did, yet to be seen. But I do get the impression in talking to executives around the league that the feeling is that the Raptors just are really in a box here, really trying to get more than they are being offered, and the teams are just not willing to bend. Philadelphia, even though they traded for George Hill, I am told that they are still in it, but their offer is in. They're not going to change their offer, and because they have George Hill, they felt they upgraded. So I don't know if the Raptors are going to hear what they want, but the last and best offer call just went out, according to what I've been told.
This is the Jumps Trade Deadline Special. Guys, we've got 9 minutes and 20 seconds till the deadline, and some huge names still out there. Ramona Shelburne has joined us now. Ramona, you've got some news to report on the Warriors, right?
Yeah, well, Kelly Oubre is their guy that they are taking calls on until the final deadline here, Rachel. There's a lot of interest in Kelly Oubre. He cost them a lot of money this year in luxury taxes, but they, like the Warriors usually are, prepared to pay a lot of money if they don't like any of the offers that they get here. But there's a lot of interest in Kelly Oubre all the way up until the deadline. He went to shoot around this morning, participated in it,